It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Welcome to the Hockey Writers Grindline. I'm your host, Pat Brown. Joining me, as always, are my line mates, Devin Little and Kyle Knopp, and we are so pleased to have you with us for another show. Joining us as well today, we're thrilled a great friend of the show has returned, managing editor of Access Hockey MI, Rachel Anderson. Rachel, thanks for coming back. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Excellent.
Doing great.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. We've got so much ground to cover. Let's dive right in and let's start with training camp. Traverse City. Rachel, we want to start with you because you were there for the prospects tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
And had a really good idea, good vision of who was there, who overachieved in your eyes, or maybe who even surprised a little bit. And were there any disappointments? So what were your thoughts? What were your overall takeaways?
Yeah, overall takeaways, it's a very exciting time to be a Red Wings fan and to be in media. The team is growing, and it's really exciting to see everything that we've put in kind of come to fruition finally. There was several prospect standouts, I would say, beyond the obvious, Raymond and all that. I think those are kind of the givens. Some of the newer guys, I would say Oscar Plandowski was one that took me by surprise. I did not know too much about him to start, so he was really surprising. Kirill Tuchayev, I was pumped to see him. So to finally see him live, he met and exceeded my expectations. So he's going to be a fun one to watch. And as far as disappointments, I wouldn't say there were really any disappointments. There's work to be done. There's a lot of growth to happen, but it's all, I think, up from here. Rachel,
was there anything that surprised you? I think you mentioned Oscar, which great name. That's my son's name. So rock on there. But what I guess I'll say, what specifically about what he did surprised you in terms of how he was performing?
I thought he approached the game with a lot more energy and tenacity than I was expecting. Okay. He's very fast. He's very skilled, which I knew, but he had a lot more drive and like a go-get-it kind of attitude. He did not shy away. You could never tell that, he was playing with a group of guys he didn't even know. I just thought his demeanor, his attitude, his whole vision was just incredible. A lot more than what I was expecting. And same for Pasquale Zito. They were kind of in neck and neck, in my opinion, as far as their performance goes. And I think that's what really surprised me. I just didn't know what to expect with him. So it kind of caught me off guard a little.
Awesome. That's super good insight, and we appreciate you sharing it with us on the show. From afar, obviously, Devin, Kyle, we had an opportunity to take in some of training camp as well. So, Devin, let's start with you. What were your takeaways from the happenings in Traverse City?
Excuse me. Like Rachel said, a lot of exciting things going on, just with all the different names, all the different picks over the last 3 years. Kids are really... fans are obviously really excited about this team going forward, but it seems like even the kids that are now a part of the system are excited to be a part of it too. And that was very easy to see on the ice. A couple, I'm going to name 3 guys that kind of just wowed me during Traverse City. One was Victor Brattstrom. Briefly touched on him a few weeks ago, talking about goalies in the system. And I think a lot of people didn't know he existed until the past couple of weeks. But whether it was his play, during the prospects tournament, the red and white game, and then even last night against the Buffalo Sabres, he's just looked solid. Like he hasn't really had a bad performance, I don't think, since he's landed in Michigan. So, he's slated to end up in Grand Rapids this season, and I think you got to be pumped if you're a Griffins fan. Next guy, yeah, exactly. I am too. Next guy is Mitchell Stevens. So admittedly, my scouting report on him was pretty limited at the time that the trade was announced, that they picked him up. But again, since he showed up in Traverse City, I've been really impressed by him. He's got a lot of speed. Was not expecting that. He's got some finish in his game. Let's not forget, this dude was drafted 33rd overall in 2015. Usually you don't get drafted that high unless you have some talent. Jonathan Berggren was drafted 33rd overall in 2018, just to kind of throw that out there. not saying they're going to be the same player, but 33rd overall.
It's a great reference, though, Devin. A great reference.
Yes, and then also, it's the exact same thing as what happened with Adam Ernie a couple of years ago too. Stevens has only played 45 games in the NHL, and he was kind of just stuck behind all the depth in Tampa Bay. So to see him really kind of pop so far with the Red Wings, that's got to get you excited, because it seems like he recognizes the opportunity that's in front of him.
Sure.
And he's going to do his damnedest to seize it. And then the last guy, you have to mention him if you're going to talk about Traverse City, Lucas Raymond. Just unbelievable. I mean, going into the 2020 draft, he was my guy, admittedly, but he's done some work since even then. His shot looks incredible. He's going to, he may not make the team this year, but he would score goals if he did. He looks that good. His offensive IQ in Traverse City, and then even last night, has just been on display. You can tell that he thinks the game at a high level in the offensive zone. I'm very excited to see what he does this season. Just based off the last 3 weeks, the kid looks so good. And then, he's also just a confident kid. He in the interviews he's done since arriving, he seems like he's really eager to just put his best foot forward, and he has every intention of making the Red Wings roster, regardless of the competition that is ahead of him. So you got to be excited about Lucas Raymond coming out of Traverse City.
So that's good stuff. I don't know if everybody else hears that out there, but chugga, 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 chugga. Do you hear that Lucas Raymond hype train? Because I think Devin is the conductor, ladies and gentlemen. All aboard the Lucas Raymond hype train. And Devin, I'm jumping on right after you. I am ready, and I couldn't agree more. So good stuff. Really good stuff. Kyle, bring us home on this. Your thoughts, Traverse City training camp prospect development tournament. What were your overall takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can add that Rachel and Devin haven't already said. I think that the team in general, as a whole, played really well together. They showed some being able to gel in a quick environment when they're thrown together, and being able to be a cohesive unit. And I thought they looked really well in those rookie games. And, one player that stuck out that we haven't mentioned yet was Wyatt Newpower. And I thought he was a great, steady defenseman back there, and was just very solid all tournament. And was one of those guys that you could count on in any situation throughout the whole tournament. And to have one of those guys waiting in the wings, that's, pardon the pun, but that's going to be with Grand Rapids this year and kind of be there ready to take over as part of the next generation. I mean, that's fantastic to see. So he was someone that really stood out in that prospects tournament to me. And then just training camp in general, I think the compete level has been really high, which you love to see within this organization. There's heart there. There's guys that are gunning for positions, that are coming out and just trying to lay everything on the line because they want to play on this team. And that's the type of guys you want to bring up through your organization. And you mentioned Mitchell Stevens. I thought he's looked phenomenal. We kind of barely brought him up a few weeks ago as a potential fourth liner. I mean, he's really kind of making the case for himself to be on that third line, kind of starting for opening night. So, I just think the Wings have really good problems to have, and us as fans and media, we have good problems in terms of covering them. But I just, as a whole, I just thought this was a fantastic, training camp and prospect camp, and one that as a fan, really got me excited for the season.
Yeah, I think super good points. And, when it all boils down to it, and I realized here's the horse, right? And I'm going to put the cart all the way there. But things are really coming together. You can see the talent in the organization. Mm-hmm. You can see the kids starting to develop, and everything that we've been clamoring for 3 years, 4 years is starting to come together. And it's exciting. It's hard not to be excited when you see that. So super good perspective. Somebody going to say something?
Just to that point, Traverse City, especially training camp in particular, was probably the first time that you really started to see the Yzer plan in motion.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
damn near every player there is an Yzerman guy at this point.
Yep. He's got his guys. Yeah. He's got his team. At least the majority of it. Everybody knows there will be obviously more kids drafted. Trades will happen, free agency signings. There will be final pieces of this puzzle to put together. But all in all, it was really, really exciting. And it just felt good to have hockey back too. Not going to lie. So all really positive stuff. Let's talk about something not so positive. And everybody knows at this point, obviously, within 10, 15 minutes, I may be exaggerating, but I believe it was about 10 or 15 minutes onto the ice.
I'm pretty sure it was when he picked up his bag from baggage claim.
10 minutes with landing.
He took that photo with a thumbs up and then
put his arm down and his shoulder just fell off.
Ouch.
Had to go get it reattached.
So obviously we're talking about Vrana because I didn't even get that out yet. And that one hurts, especially when you find out that he's going to be out 4 months. When they said the next day he was off to a specialist, it was just kind of like, whoa, because you don't go see a specialist if you need a few days rest. So he had surgery or has to have surgery. He's going to be out approximately 4 months. Not exactly how you hoped this season would kick off, but here we are. So let's talk about that for a minute, because, when things like this happen, and they do, it's next man up, right? So who is going to fill that void? Vrana was not even expected to. He was going to be such a contributor, help the Red Wings offense, help the Red Wings power play, and now they're basically back to square one. So where do you go from here? And Rachel, we want to start with you.
Well, first of all, best wishes to Vrana. Sorry about that. It wasn't me. I wasn't there, so it was not my fault. I will say,
sounds suspicious.
It's very sus.
He's the person who said they didn't do it. The one.
I
was already out of the
room. Don't at me. That was fantastic.
But in all seriousness, Vrana, it kind of is almost on par for the Red Wings to have something really, really good going for us, and then something terrible happens, and then we have to adapt. Yeah. And I'm gonna not pigeonhole it and say that one particular player is going to get that spot, because none of us knows. But I do think that, though it's tough for Vrana, this is a fantastic opportunity for some of the younger guys to really prove that they belong a little higher. It sucks for the team, but for these younger guys, they need to be seeing it as an opportunity, and they've got 4 months to prove it. And, Vrana being out, it's going to take some time for him to get back into it. He's not going to for sure get his spot back. And if we trade to fill that spot, again, it's more competition. And I really think we're going to see some of the younger guns really stand out. I can honestly, I'm not saying Ras is going to get his spot, but I do see Ras being more of a versatile player, because he was a winger and he's a centerman. He has a lot more versatility in that section or that area than Vrana does. He's not the scorer that Vrana is. He has the potential to be, but I do think he could possibly be one of the moving parts while someone is vying for it. But again, I'm not saying he's the one that's for sure going to get it, but it's an excellent opportunity for the young guys to just seize the moment and just go for it. And I know it's the cart before the horse thing, but I do think one of the younger guys could potentially take it if they prove themselves.
Look, I think even without Vrana, the Red Wings have better opportunities to score this year than even in the previous 2 years. So there's a lot to be made there, and stay tuned for more on Rasmussen in just a little bit, actually. So good stuff. Devin, let's go to you. What do we do now without the man who we expected to score a goal a game?
Devin's gonna take a spot.
Yes.
I better get in shape.
I would buy season tickets for that.
I would too.
I would at least buy a Little Caesars pizza.
It would drive me to drink.
I do want to say it's kind of cool, because it's going to be the second year in a row that the Red Wings get Vrana as a trade deadline acquisition.
But glass is half full there.
Well done. It's half full, that's for sure. But here's what this means for the Red Wings, at least at first. We're talking about this team being able to increase their scoring this year. We're kind of expecting that. So let's just say, hypothetically, this team was going to score 200 goals. That's not a giant leap forward from last season. That's about 2.5 goals per game, but it is a step forward. Vrana was probably going to score about 30 of those. So you just lost 30 out of 200. You're now down to 170, which is barely over 2 a game. So you're right back where you started, essentially. So what this means is that, like Rachel said, you got to give an opportunity to somebody who can fill that gap as best as possible. In my opinion, this comes down to 2 players that I think fit that particular role the best. And that's Bobby Ryan and Lucas Raymond, speaking of him. But
shocker.
Yes. Choo choo. But no, that being said, I also think that that's an opening for Joe Veleno. Like, I don't think he's necessarily a sniper, but that's a spot in the top 6, top 9, whatever you want to look at it, that he can fill. I think that just the way the team looks at how to handle youth, I think that this is probably the in that Bobby Ryan needs to get a contract with the Red Wings.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be the route they take. And even today in line rushes, he was playing with Suter and Fabry on that second line. So I'm thinking he's getting the first crack at it at the very least. But I do think, like I said, this is going to be between Ryan and Raymond to actually fill the Vrana specific hole. And depending on how it goes, off the Red Wings offense is either going to take a hit regardless, but are they going to take a big one or a small one? Remains to be seen.
Yep. Good points. Good points. I've got a few thoughts on Bobby as well. So I'll chime in. But before I do, Kyle, your thoughts on how do you fill the hole that's left behind with Vrana's absence?
Like Rachel, I think it is going to be a team mentality. I think there's going to have to be a few players that step in to kind of fill that role in pieces. I don't think any one player is going to be able to fill that. But also, like Devin, I think there are 2 players that kind of fit that mold the best. And for me, those players are Filip Zadina and Robbie Fabry. So back in junior at Guelph, Robbie Fabry kind of played a type of sniper role that Vrana was supposed to play this year for the Wings, and is a natural goal scorer. And we have seen that in flashes, and same with Zadina. But if we can get them to constantly put that together, I think this could be the breakout year for either of those 2 to really fill that Zadina role. I do agree that Bobby Ryan has a great pathway to filling the line slot and really getting that contract from there. And I hope that happens. And I think he is also a natural goal scorer and someone you want hanging around the front of the net at all times. So, no qualms there. And then, I would like to see Lucas Raymond and Joe Veleno and a couple of the younger guys kind of step in and get more opportunities or more looks to be able to fill that position. But to me, I think the most natural fit for that to jump in as the leading scorer is going to have to be Zadina and Fabry, and they're going to have to do it consistently.
Yep. All good points. All good points. The only thing I'll say in addition, you've got Bobby Ryan on the PTO. It's a really good opportunity for him. Obviously, he can score. He's not going to score anything near at the pace that we would expect to see from Vrana, but he's going to score. He's got a great veteran leadership mentality in the clubhouse, and what I think could really be used and really making lemonade here out of lemons is, Devin, you said it yourself. If all goes well and you get Vrana back at the trade deadline, and Bobby Ryan's having a fantastic season, well, guess what you can do, Captain Yzerman? You can flip this player who you gave a professional tryout and ultimately a contract to at the trade deadline for whatever you do, Stevie Y, and you do you because you do it very, very well. And somehow he'll get I don't even want to speculate, but you flip him and then Vrana's back. You don't even need to get a player in return. You can get draft picks if you want. I mean, because you're getting Vrana back at the trade deadline. So again, I know I'm the world's worst beer league GM. I know it. It's been said. You guys can let me have it in the comments. It's all good. But I feel like that is almost a natural path to be able to get that veteran presence onto your team. You've got the spot now. And then if he has a good season and he stays healthy, flip him. So Devin, you're raising your hand.
I also have after.
Two things. One, you got to give yourself more credit, man. You're not the worst beer league GM. You got the 4.4. Come on. Man.
I guess I did. I'll always have that.
Yeah. And then also, to your point, I mean, we were talking about the Red Wings being able to trade Ryan last season, and then he got injured, and they weren't able to do it. So this could potentially give them a second shot at doing that.
Yep. For sure. Kyle, I think you had something.
Yeah, producer Matt wanted me to chime in and say, you heard it here first. Pat Brown says Bobby Ryan's getting 40 goals.
Yes.
I believe when I said Vrana would get somewhere between 30 and 35, that turned into 40 really quick. So
why stop there? I hear 50?
The Rocket Richard race is going to go Matthews, Ovechkin, Bobby Ryan.
Bobby Ryan. Phenomenal. I love it. It's so good to be back doing it.
What do you think the odds are on that right now?
If you bet $1, you'd make a lot of money.
Count me in.
That's good stuff. Well, before we start betting the house, let's pay some bills. Let's take a quick time out. Thank you for watching our show. Give us a like, subscribe to the Hockey Writers channel. We have so much good stuff on here. We've got Blackhawks banter, Saber Scoop, Chicks and Sticks, and our newest show, Howlers and Growlers, ladies and gentlemen, which I strongly recommend you check out if you haven't already. You may recognize a familiar face, though not the outfit. In any case, follow us on Twitter. Follow Rachel on Twitter at AccessHockeyMI, and sign up for our morning newsletter, Morning Skate. Get all of the best hockey news delivered to you every morning. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. And you know what? If you want to join a chat room with us and talk hockey, well, actually, we can do that because we now have a Discord server. So you should do that as well. You can check out any one of our Twitter profiles. I'll tweet out a link that you can join in the morning and hop on in there because we would love to talk to you there as well. So
I just have a quick question for you, Pat. What's more weird, or what's weirder, plugging this show on Howlers and Growlers or plugging Howlers and Growlers on this one?
I would actually say it's weirder plugging this show on Howlers and Growlers just because I've gotten into such a good groove over, it's almost been a year that we've been doing this show, that I have to stop myself. I got to check myself quite a bit and make sure I'm not talking Red Wings instead of Coyotes. So
but you sneaking some Red Wings. I know you do.
Of course I do. And like the players always say after they win a championship, do I have a favorite show? No, they're like your kids. They're all different, right? You love them all differently. So anyways, good
again.
Stuff.
Hi, Ozzy.
and Sadie, because I love them all. I love them all. Just anyways, so let's get back to it. Good stuff. And I want to get to some comments because it's been a couple of weeks, and even when we had Keith on our last show a few weeks ago, we didn't have a chance to get to a ton of comments. So we're going to jump right into comment corner here and jump to a fan and panelist favorite right out of the gate, Paradox Destroyer. Hi, Paradox. Paradox brought up a couple of good points with Pius Suter. And so can we look at Suter? Does he have potential, given our discussion on Dylan Larkin, and more to come on that too, but does Suter have potential to be a first line center? And then I'm going to put a B on this question as well, especially since Rachel brought up Rasmussen earlier. Do we see Rasmussen as a third line center heading into this year? So kind of a two-part question. Let's talk a little bit about Suter. Let's talk a little bit about Rasmussen. And Rachel, we want to start with you.
Fantastic. Okay. So part A, I think he has a shot to be a first line for sure. And also I feel like we should correct the name because I kept hearing people say Pius, not Pius. So I don't know which one it is, if it's Pius, if it's Pius.
I'm probably wrong. There's a good chance I'm wrong. I'm horrible with names. I think I latched on to when
Ken
Suter
said it was Pius. So I'm going to go with that.
I would go with him as well. The reason, true story, the reason I say Pius is because the first time he announced, well, that's not the reason. I can see that now though. When he announced his arrival against the Red Wings and just destroyed them time and time again. I had the Chicago feed, and that was what I heard. I think he was still fairly new there. So
gotcha.
That was kind of ingrained in my mind, but Chicago pronouncing something incorrectly? I believe it. So we'll go with Ken Cal's pronunciation.
Okay, we'll say Pius.
I like it.
Or we'll stick with last names because first names don't matter.
There we go.
So I do think for part A, I do think he has a shot. And so far in preseason, he's proven to be very effective, very energetic, very eager, and obviously skilled. There's a reason that we got him. So I think that kind of goes without saying. I don't think anyone's position is safe, whether first, second, third, whatever. All the lines by the end of this rebuild need to be equally producing and equally as good as each other.
Sure.
So for now, I would say, yes, he does have the possibility of becoming first liner for sure. Maybe not displacing Larkin permanently, but I do think there could be a little tandem there. And part B, that was with Rasmussen. You said possibly getting bumped to second or third.
The question was third, but I could see an argument even for second now. Yeah. All things considered.
So all things considered, I think if he has a very effective first half of the season, I could see him second line. Because Rasmussen over the last several years has proven his ability to continually develop and be consistent with his growth, and that's one thing. Like we were talking about earlier with Zadina. That's one thing we need to see from him in order for him to kind of move up in the ranks a little bit is consistent production. And Rasmussen, I do think that if he produces well and he grows well and adapts well the first half, I could easily see him not taking over, but getting bumped to second or third. I don't think he's going to be a fourth liner for long, if at all. He's got a lot of good qualities and he's done his homework. And I do think he's got the ability to do that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Devin, tossing it over to you. Your thoughts on Suter and Rasmussen?
So the question is, does Suter have the potential to be a first line center? And I think the answer is yes, because he has the potential. I don't necessarily see it as like a long-term answer at first line center, but yeah, I do think he has the potential. I think that for him to be a top line center, he needs very, very good wingers. He's kind of in the in that old Dylan Larkin level where if he's going to be a top line center, he's probably got to have some really good wingers around him. Which as we all know, I'm a big proponent of. So now that being said, there were moments during last season with Chicago where he was their top line center. And he played alongside Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. Very good wingers.
Yeah, they're all right.
We love saying good stuff about those guys, but yeah, they are pretty good. And while he did have some success. I mean, there's a reason why, everyone's excited that he came over, but it's not like he lit the world up and he was playing with those guys.
Yep.
His Corsi numbers, for anyone out there who doesn't know, it's about getting shots and controlling the puck. It was below 50%. It was barely below 50%, but it was below 50%. Yep. And when you're playing with guys like that, guys at that caliber, you usually want to be in control of the puck more often than you're not. So I hesitate to say he's a first line center because when he had the opportunity, and we're not talking about a 20-year-old here, we're talking about a 25-year-old. So right. He's probably in his prime or he's about to be. So he doesn't have a whole lot more to grow. All right, now pivoting over to Rasmussen. I think he is third line center. I think going into the season right now, he's a third line center. And I think that is ultimately what they want him to be too. Jeff Blashill he's talked a couple times now about how they kind of point to Jordan Staal over in Carolina as a guy they want him to really model himself after. Jordan Staal has a bit more offensive skill than Rasmussen does, I think. But that's not to say that Rasmussen can't get to that level. But Jordan Staal has made a career for himself being a matchup center in the middle six that takes on the tough assignments so the guys ahead of him can live easy. And I think that's very much what Michael Rasmussen can be. He's still got some work to do to get there, but that's the development plan they have for him. And I think he's capable of getting there. And that's like what you want from a third line center. So yes, I think he can be a third line center. I think he starts being a third line center this season. Yep.
Couldn't agree more, especially with your comments on Ras. He's He looked so good at the end of last year. Was so happy with the way he developed and the way he progressed. That absolutely couldn't agree more there. Kyle, you got the last word on this one. Your thoughts on Suter. I'm going to avoid the first name for now. Your thoughts on Suter and Ras.
Yeah, Devin, that was a great job of being diplomatic and answering that question verbatim. Does he have the potential? Yeah, I mean, I think anyone has the potential to be. But
Luke Witkowski does not. I'm just going to go on a limb and say that right now.
I think what paradox?
What's that, Kyle? Luke Witkowski to score 40 goals this year? All
right, I deserve that one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Please.
You're good. So Paradox is framing this question with the assumption that Dylan Larkin is a second line center, and that's where he's going to be.
Absolutely.
And so with the way our team or the Wings are set up this year, if Dylan Larkin is the second line center, then, we already talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Suter's got to be the number one center. I mean, they don't really have a 1 and 2 line. They have a 1A, 1B type line right now. Maybe it's 1C, 1D because Vrana's gone, but it's not really a 1-2. So to say, if you're saying Larkin's the second line center, then Suter's got to be the first line. I mean, there's no one else right now that can fill that role. So yes, I'll answer that question. In terms of Ras, I was very impressed with his game on, I believe, Tuesday night against the Blackhawks. Was that Tuesday?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm losing my days this week. Apologize about that. We're still on Friday, right?
It depends on when they're watching.
That's true.
It depends on when they're watching.
We are time traveling now. I thought Rasmussen looked really, really good against Chicago. He had that really great net drive on that first goal, that turnover, that forecheck that turned into that beautiful goal to open the game or open the scoring of the game. And I thought he's, from where he went from the beginning of last season to the end of last season to where he looks to be right now, we have seen that progress. And I think that for sure he is the third line center right now. In the world of, Larkin being the second line, could he end up being that first line instead of Suter? Maybe. He has to have a really, really, really solid and consistent year. I don't see him chasing him out of that spot, but he's definitely a third line guy that that the Wings want back there.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the next question because we've still got quite a bit of ground to cover. So Lord Venom, a.k.a. Rick, another friend of the show, kind of playing off of having Keith Gave on a couple of weeks ago, asking, do you think Yzerman creates his own version of the Russian 5? Though I feel like it'd be more like the Swedish 5. But sorry if I stole that from anybody else. But kind of to compliment
somewhere.
And then complimenting that question, do you see him developing any sort of revival of the grind line or anything like that? So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rachel, we're going to start with you.
I'm going to say short answer, no. I don't think that's his intent. If it accidentally happens, great. But I don't think he's going into this rebuild with that in mind, however wonderful it would be to have that reestablished. But I think with Yzerman, he's very much a future thinker. So you can't model what the game needs to be based on what we used to do and what kind of team we used to have. It's an incredible legacy, but I don't think that's his motivation. And I think the Swedish 5 would be sweet for sure. Being Swedish myself, it would give my heart so much joy. But I do think that he's taking bits and pieces of what type of play we had as an entire team then, not just the select lines. If it just happens to come to fruition, cool. If not, I mean, it's no loss really. I think he's creating something completely different. So no.
Yeah. And when it comes to like another grind line, I just think, and I hate to say this because I love that style of hockey, but I just don't think it's that style of hockey anymore. Checking lines aren't a thing as much as I wish there were. You still need an enforcer. You need someone who's going to come out and protect your captain when a Dallas Star takes a cheap shot after a face-off. And Not that I hold any ill will or anything like that. But
They still haven't called me, so I don't know what they're doing.
But I just don't feel like from a grind perspective, checking lines are really a thing anymore. So I figured I'd piggyback off of that. Devin, your thoughts on a revival of the Russian 5 or grind line for that matter?
Well, like you said, you kind of stole my note there.
Did I take all of your talking?
Oh,
No, I got the Swedish 5 here. You got Lucas Raymond, you got Jonathan Berggren, you got Simon Edvinsson, Albert Johansson, and then Elmer Soderblom. You know, there you go. There's your Swedish 5.
I love it.
But
Beautiful.
With Bromson, you could have a Swedish 6.
Yes,
Ooh.
yes.
There we go.
Honestly, they're going to enter that territory where they had the team from 2008 or 2007, where they had like the entire Swedish Olympic team.
Yeah, basically.
Which that worked out pretty well, didn't it? But going to the grind line, I completely agree with you, Pat. I think the game's just not there anymore for that, for a line that is exactly like that to exist anymore. Now, that being said, I do think that there is kind of a new age grind line that you can create nowadays. And what I look at in that regards is Tampa Bay's third line this past year with Barclay Goodrow, Yanni Gourde, and Blake Coleman. I think that they embody what it means to be a modern day grinder. They have offense. They could chip in where, or at least they had. They're not all in Tampa Bay anymore. But they had offense. They could chip in where they needed to. But what they were really there for was to make life hell on the opposition. And they were really good at it. And I think that is more what you're looking at nowadays in terms of a grind line, is just guys with skill, but are maybe a bit better at just grinding the opposition down and being an energy line for their team.
Modern day grinder. I love it. I love it. I love it so much that you're making me rethink everything I thought before this segment. So good stuff. Kyle, your thoughts on, again, Russian 5 revival / TGL revival, if you will. TGL, the grind line. Sorry. For those watching that don't know what I was just talking about.
That's us.
We're getting revived? We haven't even done that.
Devin lost his Dr. Pepper on that
fantastic. I don't think it's been since we had Ian on the show that I got somebody to eject a drink.
Spew.
So yeah.
For those who don't know, we never say the grind line when we communicate to each other. We only say TGL. So for him to have to clarify what that meant,
I'm proud of myself for clarifying. To be honest.
Yeah, you caught yourself really quick too, but Devin could not catch himself.
It was good. It was good stuff.
What a waste of good Dr. Pepper.
Amen.
Makes for good TV though.
Yeah, right.
I feel bad for the people on Spotify right now.
It's like that, like again, when you're listening to a morning show, you just want to see it. But anyway,
Thanks for
Kyle. It's it. It took us about 40 minutes, but we're off the rails. We are off.
We're back, baby.
Kyle, your thoughts on the Russian 5 revival and the grind line reappearing, please.
You know, I had really good thoughts set up for this. And like Devin's Dr. Pepper, they are no longer in my mouth.
It's a lovely visual.
So one thing that people that might not understand the difference between styles of play between North American and European and Russian hockey, back in the late 80s, early 90s, after the Soviet Union fell and the Iron Curtain came up, a lot of hybrid types of hockey kind of stem from that, because the Swedes were learning the Russians, who were learning the Canadians, who were learning the Americans, who were learning the Russians, and it just kept going back and forth. And so now you have a really, really mixed hybrid of hockey that really emanates from North America. So if you were to go over to Russia today or anywhere else in Eastern Europe and go to a rink and run a practice there, you would see practices that are very reminiscent to 1980s hockey in the US. And the practices that we run here in the US and in Canada now are very reminiscent to what they used to run with the Russian Red Army team. A lot of focus on plyometrics and, anaerobic, quick sprint, quick twitch muscle drills, that type of thing. A lot of weaving, a lot of puck possession, moving pucks, protecting pucks, keeping the puck, and now in the 80s style, it was a lot of dump and chase in North America. A lot of, we got to get the north and south, right? We got to get into their zone. And then that's the only way we can score. Whereas the European style hockey back then was keep the puck. We got the puck. You're not getting the puck. So you're not going to see any type of Russian 5 or Swedish 5 or any type of hockey system that's just going to come out of the blue and really change the course of the game. And that's what the Russian 5 did to the NHL. And that's one thing that, people may not quite understand is they completely changed the way the game was played, north and south, and they started going east and west and really tiring teams out. And you're just not going to see that anymore. By the time you get to the NHL level. So if you're having a Russian 5 or a Swedish 6 or whatever, it better be the top line from that Olympic team that won back-to-back golds or whatever, because other than that, there's, that type of chemistry, there's nothing else you're really going to gain from having that type of setup on your team. That was my Russian 5 rant. So in terms of the grind line,
the answer is no.
Thank you. Cliff notes.
Delay of game.
Rachel, that was phenomenal. Anyways,
I love it.
Holy cow.
I go on my tangents.
I get one tangent a year and Rachel just cuts it out.
Oh my word.
I'm so sorry.
No. I love it.
We still got 2 questions to go, guys.
You are not making date night.
Kyle, yes or no? Will there be another grind line?
There will not be. Devin said it. There's no longer a grind line. It's now an energy line or a shutdown line, as the Tampa Bay line was. You want those types of line, but they're not the same type of line.
You could have just said no. We're gonna. Okay.
We love you, Kyle.
All right. So back
right.
on the we've got Blake 1991.
Oh boy.
Is it Blake or is it Brian?
It's Blake.
Is it
It's
Bobby?
Blake.
Is it?
I triple checked. And if it's not, I'm really in trouble. But has reopened the Larkin debate. Reopened it. Pandora's box is wide open at this point, right? So we're going to ask the question a little bit differently here. And for those maybe not totally up to speed, the Larkin debate is Dylan Larkin a first line center? Is he even a second line center? So that was the previous debate. So let's re-ask this a different way. Do the Red Wings need Larkin to be their top line center if they're going to become a championship caliber team? So we want to frame it up that way this time around. And Rachel, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say yes, primarily because he is the leader. So he's supposed to be setting the example. He's supposed to be the standard. If he's not pushing himself, he's not pushing and leading the people behind him. Now, I do see where they could potentially drop him back to second to allow one of the younger guys to have the first line experience. That would be fantastic. And I think in that case, it would show good leadership, not necessarily because he got dropped back, but because he has then paved the way for the younger guys and inspired the younger guys to do better. You want to be feeding off of each other's competition. But I will say that overall, the Wings need their top line guys to be the top line guys. If you are the top line, you're supposed to be the ones leading the charge and setting the tone for the game as soon as that first puck drops. And I said earlier too, all the lines need to be performing equally. However, but as soon as you get that top line, everyone starts talking about it, there's an immediate sense of responsibility that comes with that. So I do think in a sense they do need him to be that top line, but at the same time, he also needs to be flexible enough to be able to step back on the second and make room for others to fill that role if he can.
Good stuff. Devin, over to you.
Well, we know that I can talk for about 10 minutes straight on this topic, so I'm not going to. But
I'm going to get my whistle.
Long story short, when we talked about this a few weeks ago, what it came down to for me is that as it stands right now, there's nobody in the system that screams, I'm a first line center other than Dylan Larkin. So as it is right now, I think that they do, because I don't know that anybody else can really fit that role. We talked about Suter a little bit ago, maybe. We talked about Rasmussen again, maybe Joe Veleno, but again, I'm saying maybe. I think that, what you got to hope to see is that, in the future, the Wings are able to add a guy that can fill that role a little bit better than Larkin can, whether it's through a trade or a free agency or the draft. But until then, Larkin's got to be the guy, in my opinion. So the answer is yes.
Sounds good. Kyle, you got the last word. Do the Red Wings need Larkin to be a top line center if they're going to become a championship team?
Short answer, no. And my reasoning for that is
explain yourself
right now. In order to be a championship team, you need everyone playing their proper roles. And we've discussed this at length.
Yeah.
Larkin is a second line center. That is his true role. That should be his role. So in order for the Red Wings to be a championship caliber team, Dylan Larkin needs to be in a second line center role, and we need to have a true first line center. The Wings need to have a true first line center. They don't. There might be one in the waiting in the coming up, as Devin just said. Sorry, I almost called you Dylan Larkin.
He's been the worst thing anyone's ever called me.
As Devin just said, maybe. But I got Larkin on the brain now.
Larkin on the brain. Kyle, we were doing so well on this topic.
I tripped
That's
2 minutes tripping on myself. So short answer, no, and we'll leave it at that.
So I am going to actually, Kyle, I've got to agree with you on this one. I don't think the Red Wings need Larkin to be a top line center for them to be a championship caliber team. And all I do is fall back on what Keith said a couple weeks ago about Yzerman and what the Red Wings did in the late 90s. And it's so hard to remember or look back. Most of the people watching probably weren't even born yet, but I'm old. Yzerman wasn't that top line center, but he was still absolutely 110% the captain and always will be, and led that team. It didn't matter if he was centering the third line at times. The difference that he made when he was on the ice helped that team win a championship and multiple championships. So I agree with you on that one, Kyle. Yeah.
I just want to add that maybe this is one way of Blake asking this question over and over, but I don't think Larkin losing his first line center role makes him diminished as a captain at all.
Agreed.
I think he can be just as effective and maybe even more effective and just as powerful as a captain on the second or third line. He's not going to be a third or fourth liner, but if he were to be, he still has that mentality. He's still going to be one of the first to the rink every morning, one of the last to leave every night. He's going to be in the weight room getting better every day. He's the type of leader you want to follow. And so no matter where he is in the lineup, he is going to be the captain of this team. It doesn't matter if he's first or second line, play him at his true position, but it doesn't matter where you put him. He will be the captain.
Totally agree. All right, let's bring this one home. We've got one more question. Comes from the Super 5555, who mentioned in their
55
5,555. Crazy about it. There's no comma though.
Is that Murphy Cronwell?
Yeah, there you go. I love that. That's
Murph
a really
wall.
good one. That's a really good Murph wall.
It's the Murph wall.
So
I love it.
Change your handle.
The question comes from the Super Murph wall. And the question, or I should say it was more of a statement, and I just want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Filip Zadina overlooked by the media. Agree or disagree? Rachel, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say I disagree heartily, actually. I think the reason that he's not getting as much attention as he previously did is because he is now fully recovered from injury. He's healthy again. It's not his rookie season anymore. So the spotlight isn't necessarily on him, but he is getting a large amount of traction and attention. And I think with these new guys coming up, it's pushing him even more to really push himself into the limelight. And it very well should. I don't think people have forgotten about him, but I think it's kind of the natural progression of things. Each season, there's a new stud they want to watch. And it's not to say that previous person is not as good anymore. It's just how media works. And it's a shame because there's a ton of players that do get overlooked. I don't think Zadina is one of them. But yeah, I think it's just the course of media. And I think the more people see him on the ice and the more that the team themselves, and that's what really matters, is the brass and the team see him. It doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what the media thinks or how many, Instagram followers he has or whatever. That does not matter. What matters is he consistently produces. He earns the favor and the trust of the GM and the coaching staff, and that's what will get him the attention, not necessarily articles. So I don't think he's been overlooked. I think he's just in a different phase of maturing now.
Very well put. Very well put. Devin, your thoughts on Zadina and the attention?
I think that Rachel pretty much nailed it on the head. I think that, especially for a team that's in the middle of a rebuild, so they're accumulating a lot of prospects, there's always a shiny new thing to talk about. And Zadina was drafted now 3 years ago. So he's still young and he's still, growing as a player. Yeah. He's not shiny. He's not as shiny as Edmondson and Kosa and Suter and Raymond. He's a NHLer now. He's not, we're talking about him less hypothetically and more, this is what he is. This is what he needs to be. And that's maybe not as fun to talk about.
Sure.
In the media. So is he getting overlooked? I don't think so, but I do understand where this comment is coming from because you don't hear his name as much anymore. And it's just because, no offense to Filip Zadina, but there's other things to talk about.
Yep. Sure. Makes perfect sense. Kyle, you got the last word. Is Zadina being overlooked?
Well, when you phrase it that way, is he being overlooked? Maybe he is, in the sense that, people are not paying attention to him because he's not the shiny new toy. But that doesn't mean that he's not underperforming or he's not able to get, the proper recognition when he deserves it. Right. So to say he's overlooked, I think is not the best way to phrase that in terms of, what we're trying to get at. But I think you're right. It's easier for the media and it's better for the readers to read something about what could be versus about what has been happening the last 2 years and why it's not, why isn't it reaching these levels that we thought it could? We could talk about things that could be, it's more fun. It's more imaginative. It's more, hope for the future. And then you see, okay, the past 2 years, 3 years, he hasn't really hit those benchmarks that we had thought he would. Right. And so it's, not to take away from the player, but you also don't want to, continue to pound him into the mud if he's having a couple bad seasons. So I think it's justified that he's not in the spotlight, so to speak. But I wouldn't say he's being overlooked or anything. He's not being cast off. But I think it's justified that, there's new guys that are coming up that have, the fresh jersey on, has never been worn in the NHL. And, those are the guys the scrum wants to be around because they smell better, brand new pads, they don't have the Bobby Ryan 15 years of pad sweat,
So that's what dictates it. Got it.
Absolutely. Have you been in that locker room yet, Pat?
Makes sense.
But I mean, so I think in terms of, he's there. He's going to compete. He's going to be hoping, he wants to have a better year than he's had the past couple of years. But in terms of being overlooked, I think it's the way that this process goes.
Yep. And the only thing that I would add to that is, to be honest, he kind of commanded a lot of attention when he was drafted with that chip on his shoulder. He kind of commanded it. He was saying what every fan, especially for a struggling team, what every fan wants to hear, the quote, fill the back of the net with pucks, blah, blah, blah. And so it was a great story. That's old news. That's old news. Yeah. So now
Ken Holland
I would like to add something. Yeah. That was a while ago, but I would like to add something to that.
Yeah,
though,
Rachel.
Too. With Zadina, and he was one, admittedly, I'm team Veleno still. I was more excited for Veleno than I was for Zadina. I still kind of am. I think Veleno's going to progress and has progressed a lot quicker than Zadina has, but it's not taking away from Zadina's ability. I think in this time where he's not getting perhaps all of the attention, which is what he had been accustomed to, it's going to force him to, I mean, to use a strange phrase, to become a man. Like, he's in the NHL now. You're not always going to have the spotlight on you, and you still need to get out on the ice and do your job. And I think that's something that's really, I think over this season, you're going to really see him own up to that and really embrace his role. And I think that's when he's going to become the player that he said he was when he was drafted. So I think this year, maybe not having so much attention is going to be huge for him in a good way.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good point. If you want to be a star and if you want people to talk about you nonstop, you got to go out there and give them something to talk about.
Do it. Yep, absolutely. All really good points. That brings our show to a close. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time. And everybody, you guys are all really good.
It's always a good time.
It was a lot of fun. We want to thank you as well for joining us at home. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment, share. We love to hear from you. Tweet us at THW Grindline. We'll answer your comments or your tweet on next week's show. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.